Hi, everyone. Megan here from Romance by the Book with the lovely Marielle.
Hello.
And we are back for week 2 of June, which is our second novella from Alexandra Vasti, in which Matilda Halifax learns the value of restraint.
Oh,
And
these all happen on like in this the timelines are kind of the same.
yep,
They're happening concurrently. So it
yes.
does feel a little like we're backing up and then
And seeing it
um
from a different point of view, which is fun. Um, so yeah, this one we start with Christian de Board, Marquis of Ashford, and he is pissed. A woman, Matilda Halifax, did some like racy drawings of him that were turned into like
the
a
paintings.
erotic pamphlet, and basically, as far as he's concerned, is like ruining his reputation further than it already was.
Yeah, it's like BDSM kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And and it's these etchings that are like in the pamphlet's not like about him, but
right.
the etchings on there are like clearly him.
Clearly supposed to be him. Yeah.
And he is just like,
Well, and
"What
it's
the
become
heck?"
such a problem that his sister's art tutor resigned because she doesn't wanna live in his house anymore, and he's like, "My sister's gonna be heartbroken, like, what am I gonna do?" So,
Also, she's supposed to be coming out, like, the sister's supposed to be
the
coming out the
next,
next
like,
year,
season or
so
whatever, yeah,
he's just like, "I can't like, this cannot stand."
yeah. So he
Um,
goes to this ball with his friend Whitby to confront this woman,
Whitby is
Matilda.
a bit concerned
Yeah. He's
that
like,
he
"Are you sure
might
this is a good idea?" And so he finds her in the garden, and he goes up to her, and
she's, like, looking at a statue and, like, touching its hip or something, and he's like, "Of
he's like, "Of
course
course."
she would be." Like, he's just
Yes, he's very judgy. And so she is horrified that the object of many of her sexual fantasies is here in front of her and basically yelling at her. And he's so furious. And he accuses her.
she's like, "He's so grumpy."
Yeah.
Like,
She loves it. And
she's
so
not
he,
as scared as she should be, and
yeah,
he
yeah, yeah.
notices that
She's
too.
like, oh my God, he's here. Oh no. So he accuses her of illustrating this erotic pamphlet, which she did do, but she has no clue how he knows it was her. And so then he
And he's like,
starts
"The
saying,
initials are MH," and she's
right.
like, "I mean, that doesn't mean."
It doesn't mean me. Yeah. But it does mean her. But yeah, he clearly has, he has people who know things and she's like
Yeah.
not happy about it.
Well,
And so,
and because she was supposed to be anonymous, and she's like,
right,
"I
exactly.
tried to, like, have a footman deliver or not," like, she wasn't trying to, like, flaunt that she was doing this.
Right.
But then when she sees the pamphlet, so in the middle of the argument, kind of, she looks at it and she's like, "Wait a
Well,
minute."
and he says, "How the F did you know about the tattoo on my ass?" Basically. And she's like, she literally falls down in a faint. She is like so horrified that she just like whoop, like falls down. And
Yeah.
so, when he helps her up, she convinces him that her drawing was altered. She's like, "This beard, this tattoo, this like, I did not do that. Like, look at
I
these
mean, it
lines,
is
look at
the
these lines." Like, she convinces him, which
Megan,
is
she
true.
she is like, "Look at this pubic hair. The lines on the work here is so fine, and that beard is
It
like
just like looks like
rough."
somebody
Like,
scratched it on like a kid's magazine or whatever. So anyway, it is funny, but also I mean, she truly did not do that part, and he can see like what she's talking about that she didn't do it, and he believes her. And so,
however, in the inner dialogue, you do like she is kind of like, "Well, he was the inspiration. Like, I've never met him before."
right,
It's not like they run in circles where they see each other all the time,
right.
but she has seen him and
Yes.
has
And she
fantasized.
knows of him through people in the community that she's been like becoming a part of or whatever.
So she so he was kind of like the muse, and so she
Right.
is kind of
And
like,
she's like,
I mean,
clearly somebody noticed that, which is
yeah,
not great.
right, and she's like, "Technically, I did not draw this, and
Right.
I did not draw him. However,"
But yeah.
yeah, so she
Um,
doesn't feel blameless
yeah,
even
and
though
so when he does help her up, she just apologizes profusely. And he actually feels a little bad for like trying to scare her because he was trying to scare her. And so he tells her about his sister B and how her teacher quit because of all this, and she's supposed to come out next year, and he's in another scandal. Like the whole thing is a giant mess. And so he's like, everybody already thinks he killed his wife. That's the other part that we're finding out now is like the rumor is that he killed his first wife, which of course he didn't.
And
Um,
if you read the other novella, like, that was the reason why Margot, her sister, was
right.
like,
Was
"Must
like,
chase her
that
tail,
man is
must save my
dangerous.
sister."
Yeah. And
Um,
so, and of course, Matilda knows about that gossip, which is why she doesn't believe it. Cause she's like, I know all the things they said about me and how many of them weren't true. So like, I don't believe that, you know?
which
Um,
it completely surprises him. Like,
yeah,
he was already kinda surprised that she wasn't that scared of him, but when he's like, "Didn't you hear that I killed my wife?" And she's like, "Ah, that's not true."
yeah,
He is like, "Oh,
yeah.
okay."
He's surprised. And so she apologizes again and she leaves. And then we see a bunch of letters between them with
I
Matilda attempting to
love
find B another tutor
I
and
love an
him
epistolary
resisting.
romance because
Same.
of this reason, and we have her she is like, "No, I insist, like, I need to help you
Yeah,
because even though I didn't mean to do this, I have caused harm, I must fix."
right.
And then he, like, is clearly charmed. We get a couple of letters that are, like, scratched out, never sent. He
Yeah.
sent something to her and she is like, "Are you saying?" And he's like, "Burn that letter, please." And she's like, "But what if I don't?"
What if I don't want to? Yeah.
So they're having fun, even
Yeah,
though it's
it is. It's very
begrudging.
cute. And so she wants to meet in person and he refuses. So she finally says like, "I'm going to be in St. James Park at midnight tonight and you should come meet me."
And it's like a sketchy corner. Like,
Yeah.
she's kind of like, "I'm going to a part of this park that's dark and
After
also,
midnight.
like,
And so of course
near."
he's like, of course he's going
Yeah.
to show up because he can't just leave her like to herself, right? So he's waiting, she's late, and he's worried because it is midnight. And and also he's been curious about her, and so he, I guess, asks around and he finds out that she's 13 years younger than him. And so he's like, not that that should matter because I'm not getting involved clearly. And you're like, okay, buddy.
It's like
Uh,
he did the math real fast, and then he was like, "I wasn't interested, and there's no
yeah.
reason why. I'm just good at math. It's fine."
Mhm, yeah. And so when she arrives, he's mad at her, like disregarding her safety. And so she offers herself up as B's tutor, and he is horrified. He's like, "You're unmarried. I'm like a known sexual deviant. Like, this cannot be. Like, there's no way that you think your reputation's already ruined, but like, you're
It's
wrong. It will be if you do this."
The thing that was funny to me, though, is that he is like, "You reckless," and she is like, "I brought 2 footmen. I am safe."
And a groom or
I
something. Yeah.
Yeah, she was just like, "I I'm okay." But it dawns on him that she did this on pur like, she knew he was not going to
Leave her at 12:30 at night
be
without
able
coming to meet
to
her.
yeah.
Yeah.
So he realizes that he already has identified that she looks very sweet, she
Yeah.
looks very innocent, she looks like a milkmaid. Sometimes she's, like, shy, like, there's things
Yeah.
about her that he's just like, she is like a sweet, soft, and then she's got this side that every once in a while he's like, "Wait a minute,
Yeah.
this is danger."
Well, and she's not getting anywhere. He's, like, absolutely refusing, and so she finally admits, like, she did sort of draw him, like you were saying earlier. Like, she feels guilty because there was maybe a slight resemblance because he was the inspiration for her drawing, and therefore she feels even more responsible that somebody took it, another step further, and she really, like, has to fix it.
Yeah, and she
And
doesn't mean to, like, truly confess to all the things, but she
yeah.
fully confesses to all the things,
Yeah.
and so
Well,
he's
and she also
like
clearly wants him, which that part remains unsaid, but, like, there's serious vibes happening between them, obviously. And so he still says no and tells her to go home. And so the next night he's at a party and he can't stop thinking about her and he's
he
drunk.
has gotten himself drunk to try to, like, forget. Like, she hasn't written him in a couple of days,
Mhm.
and he's just like, "I don't miss those letters that smell like lemon," and I forgot what they almond and something,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he is just like, clearly he's having problems.
Yes. And he's drunk. And so then she arrives and she pulls him into a dark corner, but her voice sounds afraid. And he's like, good. Like, she's finally getting scared of me. Good. Like, I'll scare her some more. So he starts saying all the dirty things he wants to do to her. And he's like kissing up on her and she slaps him. And as she's walking away into the light, he realizes that it's Margot and not Matilda.
He
Because
also
he's drunk,
he
he was like not, things didn't seem right, but he thought it was him, and then he realizes, no, it's because it wasn't her.
Yeah, he did. He identified like a couple of things early on, like, and even when he was trying to like get all up in her space, he she didn't react correctly, but also she didn't smell
It
right.
didn't
Like
smell right. Yeah,
um, which is a very romancy thing that
it is.
you gotta love. But yeah, he was like, she doesn't smell like those letters. She
Yeah.
smells like, but he was
Uh-huh.
too, first of all, I
Too
think
drunk.
he was like drunk and overwrought. Like this man is a man who like is not used to emotions.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
He's feeling them. So
So Margot went home and told Matilda everything, and Matilda is big mad. And so she goes to knock on his door. He is packing.
Matilda's also very like, you couldn't have it like your solution. You're concerned that I might be making a mistake, and your solution is not to have a conversation with me. Your solution is to dress up as me and go
Go
find that
figure out
man in
what's
a
out there.
dark
Yeah.
alcove somewhere.
Like this is a problem. Yeah. So he's packing to go home as soon as possible. She's mad when he comes in and he says her name. And she's like, "Oh, so you do recognize me." And he's like, of course he does. And so he like apologizes profusely and she's like, "Great, now I'm coming home with you and you can't stop me. Like that's your recompense to me. You're going to let me come be B's tutor." And he's like, he finally is like, "Okay." Like she bested him. This is it. Like she's fine. She's getting
He
her way.
also he was so like horrified by what he, she's like now I had to like tell her things about myself and my actions that I had not planned on telling her. And so he is very upset about this.
Yeah.
And she's just kind of like, ha, now you know how, he says like anything that I could do. And she's like, anything?
Mhm.
As long as and he is not paying attention to what he is doing.
Yep.
But as soon as he's like it's like, I don't know. She was
Yeah.
smart. She
Oh
did a
yeah,
good job
she
there.
she she got him right where she wanted him. So a week later, they leave town and she sneaks out before dawn so she doesn't have to explain anything to Margot. And after 6 hours of silence in the carriage, she decides to tell him how she explained her absence to her brother and sister. She told them that she and Ashford were eloping to Scotland. He is shook, to say the least. Why the hell was that the best plan you could think of? Like, are you serious?
And she says, like, well, I know my sister,
Yeah.
and she is already like upset this situation. She doesn't trust you. She's not going to want my reputation to be whatever. So she's not going to tell anybody.
Yeah.
And so she felt like this would be like saying something like that would be the best chance of keeping it quiet.
Keeping it quiet. Yeah.
And
And in the same
he,
vein, she decides that when they make stops, they should pretend to be married, like for the same reason. And he reluctantly agrees.
I did one thing that I love about this novella is that, he keeps saying like 2 rooms
Adjoining room.
adjoining
Yeah.
because my wife,
Uh-huh.
and I guess if you don't have a spare room, then we
We
can
can share.
do one.
Well, yeah, he's
But
saying a
they,
lot of my wife, this and that, and she likes it way too much. It's really a
uh
problem.
yeah, and she is disappointed when the inns have the
There's
adjoining
never only
rooms.
one bed. It's very sad.
She's like, darn.
And so they're sitting there eating, but she's not eating. She's just kind of like pushing her food around, and he wants to know why. So she tells him like she's a vegetarian, which he thinks is dumb. But he still calls the server over and orders like eggs and dessert for her.
But also he is like a grump. So he's like, "Do you have a vegetable?" And they're like, "We have potatoes." And he's like, and the lady is anyway, he's intimidating.
Yes,
And
very.
she is like, "It's fine. I'll just have the
Like
eggs. It's
eggs and
fine."
dessert are great. That's fine. She likes him
But
too much. She's really like charmed by the fact that he's being grumpy and yet still like fully taking care of her.
he also is like very interested in her reason. And she says, well, I read this pamphlet. It was by Lord Byron. And he's like, the poet? Like what? Not a
What about
not
a
a
doctor?
medical doctor. Like it and she anyway, she's like, there's many like health benefits. And he goes, bollocks, like, no,
Name
that's not
one.
your reason. Um, and it's because he's like, I know, I've noticed you have a soft heart. You just don't want to eat animals. And she's like, I knew
maybe.
I should have. She's like, I knew I should have memorized some of the reasons on that pamphlet. She said usually when
Oh,
she
God.
says, when she mentions it was like the Pythagorean diet or some
Yeah.
weird one. And she's like, usually when I mention that, people's eyes glaze over and they don't want to talk about it anymore.
Yeah, she hasn't had to explain it to anyone.
Whoops.
So 3 days in now, Ashford is regretting all his life choices. He pulled out his glasses to work one day, but Matilda was like entranced by them and just kept staring at him and he like couldn't handle it. So he had to take them off. So he can't work. They couldn't talk because he likes her too much when they're talking. And
Like
when they're
she's
not
well
talking,
read and she makes him like she's amusing and he's like, well, clearly we can't continue
yeah.
this.
And then when they're not talking, he just looks at her, which is not good either. So he's a mess. And so she asks about B one day, and they have different mothers. His mom died when he was a kid. And when his dad and B's mom got remarried, they had B, and then they died 12 years ago from influenza, both of them.
Yeah.
He married shortly after that because he had this little girl and he didn't know what to do with her basically. And it was a huge mistake, but he doesn't really want to get into that like at this point. And so when they reach a coaching town, she insists they take a break. So they walk out to this like waterfall with a picnic. And they have kind of a moment on the blanket, and then he like jumps up and says, like, oh, we need to go take a walk. So a while
We
later,
will say that earlier on, like during the carriage ride, he
yeah,
does mention that he is having physical responses and he's real glad that like the fashion of the day is long jackets because he keeps
yeah,
having to like adjust so he
adjust
can
himself.
cover his yeah. And so I think I mean it's pretty clear that them
Yes, he
hanging
is like
out in this
mega turned on.
yeah.
And so a while later, as they're walking, they hear a cry and they go to investigate and they see her sister Margot and Henry getting it on in the woods. And she's like, oh, it's like a my eyes Phoebe moment from Friends. It's very funny. And she's horrified and
Well,
also
and he
big
thought
mad that
something
she's
was
there.
going on, so he's like, "You stay here," and she was like, "I'm not staying here." He's like, "Well, at least stay behind me."
Yeah.
But every once in a while, he keeps using this like commanding, like, "No, this is what you're doing," and she's like, "Oh,
Oh,
okay."
okay.
So she does stay behind him, but when he stops short, she's like, looks around and then is
Yeah.
like, "What?"
Yeah. So she's mad that Margot's there, but she knows she needs to talk to her. So she asks him to wait there and he agrees. So, but when she returns, she is clearly upset. Then she tells him the truth about why they were kicked out of finishing school. The dancing master wanted a then 16-year-old Margot and insisted on like private instruction for her. And so Matilda went in her place and nearly unmanned him when he made a move on
Tried
her.
something, yeah.
And then he went and told the headmaster that she tried to seduce him and they kicked the girls out. Margot never found out about it. She still doesn't know that that's what
I
happened.
guess she thinks that they got kicked out because it's like general shenanigans, not
Right.
because of a particular
And so she's mad at Margot for following them, but she's like, also, it's what I would do. It's what I would have done. So like I'm a hypocrite for being mad, you know?
yeah.
And so he kind of holds her to comfort her, but he knows he's gonna pay for it later because now he's like felt her and it's like not good for him. So
The
in
the
the
truth is too that like even when she first saw her sister and when she came back,
Mhm,
like he is there for her and he comforts her and he in the first instance he like kind of helps her see the humor a little bit in the situation.
yeah,
And he is so pleased with himself that he could do that. Like that he
yeah,
could lighten her load a little bit or that he could make her like smile a little bit. And
when she was clearly
it's
upset. Yeah,
yeah.
it's
So
sweet.
yeah, it's sweet. And it's a thing that's like it is becoming a problem, right? Because he wants to take care of her and he like gets something out of it
Yeah.
every time.
So in the carriage, a big dirty cat crawls out from under the bench and he can
Okay.
tell that she means to keep it. And he is like, no. And she just does not listen. She literally knocks on the thing, like telling the people to go. They're like right about to leave. And so they start rolling and he's like, I can't believe you just did that. And so she's like, I think your sister would love a cat. And he's like,
You
he
jerk.
is so mad.
He's
And
like,
then
look
he
at you.
also starts sneezing, which is apparently a problem for him. So, In this point, we get Matilda's POV, and she is thinking about what we already joked about, which is she's disappointed that they haven't found themselves in an only one bed situation yet. But at this point, she's glad because she has the cat that she has snuck into the inn, and she's like, "There's no way I could do that if we were sharing a room."
But
Uh,
she wants to give that cat a bath because it is dirty,
it's gross.
but
Yeah.
also she's like, it would probably help with his sneezing situation if this cat was clean. So
Hmm.
she is like, I'm gonna give this cat a bath. It's gonna be a secret that I am doing this and that I brought it in here,
Yeah.
and
It
it's gonna be fine.
it does not go well, as one would expect. She ends up scratched and soaked in her chemise and chemise. How do you chemise?
Chemise, yeah.
Yeah. And he comes through the door to help her. He's
Well,
shirtless.
yeah,
He's
because the
clearly getting
cat,
ready
like,
for bed.
knocks her over and, like, tries to smother her,
And she like
basically.
screams or something. Yeah. And he like comes banging through the door. He's shirtless. The cat has to be like removed from her face. It's basically like glommed on it, and she like can't see. So he like wraps a towel around it and like pulls it off of her.
And
And
the cat is wet, so since it jumped right at her chest,
yeah,
she is also like, her
also wet.
chemise is now see-through because it's soaking wet. She's
Yes,
got a
and
scratch.
also the cat, like, jumps onto the bed fully wet, breaks open one of the pillows full of feathers, like, it's a disaster. And so, um, he tells her to change clothes and come into his room so he can clean up her wounds. And so she does, and he's, like, tending to her on his bed, and he is, like, fully aroused. And he, like, touches her neck and her hair, like, even after he's, like, cleaned up the scratches, like, trying to make sure that
He's like, "I'm looking to make sure there aren't any more," but
yeah.
really, he just can't stop touching
Can't
her.
stop touching her. And so, he says that she should take the bed, and she insists that they should share it. And she's like, "I'd share myself with you too, if you want that." Basically, like, she just
So,
puts it
one
right
thing
out
that
there.
happens there too is that he is like, "I'll sleep on the floor, you sleep on the bed," and she's like, "No way, like, first of all, it's my own fault that my bed's not usable.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm making you sleep on the floor," and he's like, "Well, there's no way I would like, I could never," and she's like, "Well, how do you think I feel? Do you think I could?" And he thinks, "Well, my wife would have, like, she would have been fine with me sleeping on the floor." But she was like, "If you sleep on the floor, I'm sleeping on the floor too." Like, she insists.
And at one point, her, like, dressing gown comes up off her shoulder, and he realizes that she's naked under there,
Yeah,
and
and
he
it is not
just
a mistake.
snaps.
She did that on purpose.
She did. He snaps, and so he kisses her, and, things start taking off from there. He tells her to say stop if he does anything that she doesn't like, and he,
She
like
says, "Stop talking."
yes, she says, "Stop talking." It's so funny. And so he, like, spanks her, and he, like, gets her off. It's all very hot, and then she falls asleep with him, and in the morning, she's thrilled to be, like, cuddled up with him, but when he wakes, she can tell it's, like, instant regret, and she's like, "Oh, no." And so he apologizes for taking advantage of her, and that makes her mad and sad. She's like, "You know, I wanted this, like, I offered myself, like, this you didn't take advantage of me." And so she sends him down to get breakfast because she's like, "I don't even wanna look at you right now." And so they don't speak in the carriage. He can't want her this much. It's, like, not safe for him. He feels, like, out of control, and he doesn't like that. So they arrive to his estate, and his sister runs out. She's thrilled to see him. She's very shy with Matilda, who mistakes it for just straight up shyness at first, and then B says something like, "Oh, I've heard of you." And she's like, "Oh god, like, this is not like, she thinks I'm the worst. This is terrible," right? So
It's
awkward.
interesting because he told her that B, like, was not very open with other people, and that
Mhm.
she, like, even he said something about how, like, whenever he came down from school, he had to, like, give her treats to, like, bribe her to, like, talk, like, kinda talk with him, but
Right.
when they get there, she, like, hurdles herself onto him there, and they're
Yeah.
so, like, at ease with each other
Yeah.
that Margot is like, "Oh, this is sweet," and then as
Yeah.
soon as, like, attention turns to her, not
Yeah, she's
Margot,
like, "Oh, I've
Matilda,
heard of you."
she
Oh
just,
god.
like,
Yeah. Ouch. So in the morning, B takes her, to her studio, and, it's just covered in all these paintings in various stages of being finished, and Matilda is stunned. Like, her work is extraordinary. She's like, "I honestly don't know if I'm gonna be able to teach you anything, but, like, we can learn from each other," you know?
He's
Um,
like, I've had lots of training, but what like, this is
yeah,
beyond, like, I
like
don't even know if I
talent.
can teach you.
And she's like, when we go to London together in March, and B freaks out. She's like, no, I cannot go to London. Like, I'm not doing that. And it's such a serious freak out that Matilda is like, what's going on here? Like, something is
Yeah.
weird.
And she's
So
like, I mean, we don't have to talk about it now. It's a ways away.
yeah.
We can do this over the
And so she
winter.
kind of
But
drops it, but it's, yes, clearly something is happening there. So they paint together for a couple of weeks, and the housekeeper, Mrs. Perkins, informs them that the cat, now named Angelica Kaufman, is pregnant. Uh-oh, that's why she was so fat. Christian is apoplectic
well,
about
first
this
they're like,
cat
how
having a
many
baby.
kittens do you think she'll have? And it's like probably they're like usually litters or whatever, and they're like probably she'll have 12, like just to spite us.
Just
Like
to
it's
spite me. Yeah, it's very funny. So of course Matilda and B start bonding, and Matilda is kind of horrified at the condition of the house. Everything is like dark and drab, and it's like an old fort that they turned into like a castle, and so it's like it's not great. Like, it's
yeah, it's
not
like a
comfortable.
medieval edifice, and and she's like, this has not been updated in a very long time.
Yeah,
The curtains are like there's because it was an old uh like it was supposed to be for protection
right.
originally. Like it doesn't have a lot of windows anyway, but then
Mhm.
it's like covered with it's like these curtains that don't open because
Right.
when she tries to, it's like she either has to like pull them all the
Pull
way
them down.
down
Yeah.
or they just stay closed.
Yeah, it's a mess. And so she decides to redecorate, and he finds her in his library surrounded by furniture and torn down drapes. And he just like can't help himself. He locks the library door, and he goes over and he starts like feeling up her leg and like messing around with her, and they end up having sex, and it is hot. And she knows she feels too much for him, and this is going to hurt her, but like she can't help herself.
Yeah.
And so the
And
next
there's that
day,
thing there that he is like, you are like, this is too much. And she's like, it's the
mhm,
one thing I can do for you.
yeah,
And he just like the thing is, I don't know that he's ever had anybody like at least since his parents died wanting to
yeah,
like do anything for him. So
right, take
it's
care of him in any way. Yeah. He's
yeah.
the one that's been taking care of B this whole time. Like, nobody's been taking care of him. So the next day, the cat has 5 orange kittens, and she's like a gray cat. So clearly she, got with an orange cat. It's everybody thinks it's hilarious. And they are born on Matilda's bed, of course.
Which she's like, they have been, I guess when Mrs. Perkins originally was like, this cat is pregnant, she says we need to like nest. And so they have been trying to like offer up, like, here's a spot you might like, but the cat does not want any of that.
On
And
Matilda's bed. So she and B talk more about London, and B is worried about Christian and all the terrible rumors about his wife, and she doesn't want to force him there to have to deal with all that again. Like, she refuses to do it. And so Matilda says B should only worry about her own battles to fight. Like, he's a grown man, he can take it. And if he
well,
couldn't
then
take
she
it, he
says
wouldn't be
he's
offering.
stronger than you think. And
Yeah.
it dawns on her that she and her sister have also been doing that with each other, that they've been trying to like protect the other
Yep.
instead of like letting them each like take care of their own things.
Yep.
And so she does advise B that like maybe you should let him fight his battles
Right.
because he's stronger than you think, and it might not be what you think it
As
is.
bad as you think. Yeah. So Mrs. Perkins sends her to a new bedchamber because her bed is ruined for the moment, which is right across the hall from Christian. And Mrs. Perkins clearly knows what she's doing. So he comes to bed
I mean, she
that
like
night.
winks, even though she's been very stern the entire time. She's
Yeah.
like, she said something like, "Are you going to continue redecorating? Because maybe you should redecorate
His room,
his room." And she's like, "Oh, I mean, I guess you can show me,
where it
one
is.
day." And
Yeah.
she's like, "Well, it's right here. So whenever you're ready,
Yeah.
yeah, wait."
And so he comes to bed that night, and he finds Matilda there. And at first he's mad. Um, he's sort of taking all the stuff she's doing like badly. He's like, you want to change us, like you know, you want to change this house, like it's not good enough for you, whatever. And she's like, and then in his mind, he's like, no, I know this is wrong, but like he just can't like help thinking that way about it. And
it also, I mean, it feels very like this is a past issue that he's like bringing into the current
yeah,
situation. And
exactly.
like for me, and I don't, this was not in the book. This is me reading into things, but I thought like it's half that and half that if he's not mad, he's gonna be like charmed and like
He's
more
gonna
in
give
love with
in.
her, and he
Yeah.
can't.
So he does end up telling her about his wife and how she died. And um, you know, it's a terrible story, of course. And Matilda, she wants to stay with him. So she kind of, the way she says it is more like, I want to stay with you forever. And he says, I want you to stay with me tonight. And she's like, okay. And so they have sex, and of course it's hot, but it's also like super emotional and just like really like nice. And so
Yeah.
in the morning, B knocks on the door. Well, I say morning, it's like practically like they slept late. And so B knocks on his
They
door.
don't know that yet. When they wake up, they're like he thinks it's morning, but it's so bright out that he's
Yeah.
like,
And so he gets them both decent, and he kind of
he
drags,
will say that Matilda was like, I can hide in your wardrobe. And he's like, I'm not hiding you. Like, this is not, I'm
like,
not
I'm not ashamed
ashamed,
of you. You're not hiding. Yeah.
which was really sweet because there was a point earlier where she thought he might be like that she might have embarrassed him
Yeah.
just by being who she was.
Yeah.
So I thought it was very sweet that he was very like, no, this is not a thing
Yeah.
we're doing.
We're doing this. So he gets them both decent. He drags her to the door with him. B does not react well. She says something like, "Oh wow, I thought you stayed here for me," like to Matilda. And it was heartbreaking, honestly.
Yeah.
And so she runs away.
And
And by
she says
after,
she needs time. Like she tells Christian to leave her alone that she needs time.
yeah,
And so they do try
they
to give her
do.
time.
But yeah, by the afternoon, she still hasn't returned, and he's starting to freak out. And because it's November and it started to rain, and like he's like, this is not like I have to go find her. So
And
he
we
takes,
did find out that his wife like went out, like she kind of asked for a divorce and then he told her no, and she went out and died like she had an accident.
yeah,
And they didn't, he has felt that if he looked for her sooner or whatever. So in
right.
this case he is freaking out because it's
Yes.
like she's out there, we don't know exactly where she went. I think she might have gone to paint at the beach, but I don't know. And so
Yeah.
he
And so he takes some of the grooms and other guys with him, and they go out to search. And he begs Matilda to stay at the house in case she comes back. So she decides to search the house again, because of course they searched the house first and didn't find anything, which is why he decided to go out. She decides to search the house again, and she finds B in the library among all that extra furniture that's piled up. She has like all the kittens on top of her.
and
So
she's like in a nest of like a whole bunch of curtains. She's like nestled up in there. So I guess they
yeah,
didn't see her because she was wrapped up in curtain and covered in
yeah.
kittens.
And because the kittens are on top of her, she hasn't moved all day. And Matilda was like, "Didn't you hear us calling your name?" And she's like, "I did, but like I was mad, so I didn't say anything."
She
And then I was
at
stuck.
first she says like I tried to call back, but I didn't want to wake the kittens. And then she does admit that she was like
She was
she
mad.
wanted them to worry and she was kind of jealous.
Well, yeah,
Um
and she's like, "I'm jealous of everything that you have," and um, not like it's weird to say she was jealous because that's her brother, obviously. But I mean, she basically is like, "I'm jealous of you and like your life and everything. You have everything you want, and like I thought somebody was finally here like for me, and like you're here for him, and like it was hard, you know." And so, um,
she was jealous of like not of her relationship with the brother, but of like her ability to like go out there and get what she wants
yeah,
is how it read.
yeah, for sure. And so when she finds out that all the men are out searching for her outside, she's horrified because it's like raining and sleeting, like it's really gross out there.
And they've been
And
out there for a while, so
yeah. And so she sends Matilda out to go find him. So she takes one of the men with her, and they find him. His horse got stuck in the salt flats, and he's nearly frozen, like trying to push this horse out.
and Matilda, when she goes to the stables, like most of them have come back. Like most of the people who were out searching have come
Yeah,
back, but not Christian and the one like groom that was with him. And so they go to find him and they find the groom who is like walking back. He's like
He's a mess.
disoriented and he's so cold. And he's like, well, he's, Christian's still with the horse.
Yeah.
And
Lead the horse.
I was
And
very concerned for him because
yeah.
he's
And so they
like,
find him and yeah, he's a mess. And he tells her he loves her. He's like, I knew I'd see you again. Like it's all very like, I'm dying stuff. And she tells him, I'm not interested in deathbed confessions. You can tell me again when we're naked in bed. Like that's what she says to
like
him.
a
Like, you
hot
can tell me you
chocolate.
love me again when we're naked in your bed. Like we're not doing this right now. And so they managed to get him out. And so in the morning, Matilda is still like next to his bed as he's sleeping. She's been like holding vigil all night. And when he wakes up, she tells him B is okay, you know, and explains where they found her and everything. He calls for Mrs. Perkins to order breakfast for Matilda, which makes her like hope that he still like cares about her and that he's ready to say what he said the night before.
Yeah.
And so he tells her he meant everything he said and he loves her and he wants forever with her. And she gets undressed quickly and like jumps in the bed and says, I love you too. And at first he's confused and she's like, I told you I wasn't going to tell you it back until we were naked in your bed. Like, so here I am. This is happening.
It's
And
really cute
it is
because
really cute. And so they agree to get married, and they start kissing. And of course, whenever they're together, the rest of the world kind of disappears. And that's the end of the book. And it's so good. So good. So sweet.
it's very
So
sweet.
fun. It was so fun that um when we got everything from Margot's point of view, we thought we knew what was going on, but when we got into this book, you know, it was not at all what we thought. So that was really fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed that a lot. Also, I feel like Alexandra Vasti did a lot. Like she was able to tell us a lot about the characters and their backstory, even in a short, like the novellas are what, like 200
Mm,
ish
a little less, yeah.
pages.
Hmm.
Yeah, so they're not long, but she does a lot with it, and you do get like kind of an emotional roller coaster, which is super
Yeah.
satisfying to get to the end.
Oh my gosh, that was awesome. So thank you guys. Next week we're going to be talking about the third and final Halifax Hellion, which is Spencer, their brother, and his wife? Question mark. We're going to find out.
Yeah,
See you
like
next
we
week.
hadn't heard about a wife until that book popped up.
See you next week, friends.
See you then.